And the lesson I want you to take away from this is that any publication you write should have one central purpose. Just throwing literature together will guarantee a rejection. Because sometimes what I see is like folks try to cobble like literature together and create something like a conceptual piece, and it makes no sense. But what I want you all to consider is that if you're trying to write for publication, your piece is going to want to have a central purpose, and one in particular. Look, I know you're probably someone who is excited to finish your dissertation, but you know you want to do something with it after, right? And one of those things might be publishing and turning your dissertation into journal articles. But if you're like many doctoral students, no one probably ever told you how to do that. If so, you're going to want to watch this episode from ABD to PhD show because I'm going to share with you insights on how to turn your dissertation into journal articles. And I share this with over 10 years of experience as a published author. I have over 70 publications with over 45 of them being peer-reviewed journal articles. So I have a lot of experience with writing for publication as someone who does it in my profession as a currently an associate professor and also department chair. And then also, I actually served as a journal editor for 5 years for the journal African American Males in Education. And so I had the perspective around how to do this also from the editor side in terms of what editors are looking at. So you're going to want to watch this episode from AUD to PhD show to get real insights on how to turn your dissertation into publications. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation. And at Done Dissertation, our goal is to help doctoral students get unstuck and help them write and defend a dissertation in record time. And so today's episode is something that a lot of doctoral students I know want to do and is write for publication. Or you may be someone watching who just recently defended or in your first year as a faculty member or second year, pre-tenure, and trying to figure out, I did my dissertation, but boy, this publishing game is totally different. And so if that's you, it's okay, but I'm going to give you some insights today, and I'm going to title this From the Editor's Desk. And this is the 5th installment of our 5-part series where we've been talking about different aspects of the research process that are important for you all to consider. Because episode 1, we focused on conceptualizing and thinking about your theoretical framework. Episode 2, we looked at the literature review. Episode 3, we focused on getting through IRB. And episode 4, we focused on the writing up your findings. Now, today, we're going to say, hey, you gotten your doctorate. Now we're going to turn that dissertation into publication. Here's what you do. And so I'm going to share with you all some insights that when I was an editor of the journal, I would keep this post that I would do called From the Editor's Desk that I would do on Facebook at the time. And so you'll even see the timestamps when I show you these in a second. And I'm going to talk through 4 particular mistakes I see doctoral students make when they're trying to turn their dissertation into publication. And I'm hoping this will help you kind of fast track that process. And so the first thing, and I'll give you a second to take a look at this because I think it's just always so interesting. And this is from 2017 when I was a journal editor, and I was the editor from 2015 to 2020. And so this says From the Editor's Desk. If you say that you're conducting a qualitative study, it would be in your best interest to actually include data. There's no need to have an implications section and don't report any data. That is all. #desk rejection. Look, what this happened, I remember this vividly. Someone submitted an article and they had the intro, lit review, method section. And then when we got to the findings, it was a qualitative study. And all they had was like interpretations of what they found. It didn't make any sense. They were just saying, oh, my study concluded that these students did this. My study concluded these students did that. But they never presented any data. So one of the things that I want you all to consider is that when you're writing for publication, you have to submit input and data in your work, especially if you're doing like an empirical study, right? But the way you do this will look different based on the journal that you're writing for. So this is why when you're trying to turn a dissertation into a journal article, you have to be very mindful of what the journal is requiring of you. And so the best way to do that is look at a recent issue and use one of the articles as a model article, and you will look at and emulate the sections in terms of how is it structured, how long is their findings section compared to the methods section, compared to the discussion section. Like think about the word count. Like these things start to matter. So find an article that you're going to use to essentially give you the roadmap as to how to frame yours. And the reason why I suggest you do this, and I do this in my own practice, and this is what we teach students in our velocity program and then in our dissertation and publication program as well, is that you have to be mindful and like position your work within the scope of how those journals are looking for your work to look. That's part of the process. And because I don't want you all to experience what this author unfortunately did, which was a desk rejection. And so essentially what a desk rejection is that the editorial staff, we review it first. And then if we find that this doesn't have a shot at getting published, and because reviewers are so hard to come by and we don't want to waste their time, we would never send out something that we don't think has the opportunity to get potential to get published. And so when that happens, we desk reject it. And I promise you, you don't want this to happen. And the more, these things start to happen and or if you're getting a lot of desk rejections, you need to start considering, am I writing for the right place? Is this fitting this journal? Am I doing something that doesn't fit? Let me look at a recent article. Does my article that I wrote align with this one? If not, you may need to retool and revamp it. So now another reflection that I had when I was doing this, and again, the lesson I want you to continue to take away is that if your study is empirical, make sure that you include data. A reviewer can't confirm your interpretations if data is not present. Again, I don't want to send this out for publication. I don't even want to send this out to the reviewers because they're not going to review it well, and it's just going to get you rejected. So I don't want to waste everybody's time, and so you want to make sure that you don't do the same. So this is the lesson and kind of takeaway I want you to have from this. Now, another reflection I had when I was a journal editor that I want to share with you all, and then in this note it said a note from the editor's desk. When submitting a manuscript, make sure you get everything looking right, especially your APA or citing format required. It shouldn't be up to a copy editor on the back end of the process to point out you missed 15 references. Either use a reference software or go old school and print out the manuscript and compare it reference by reference. I do this way. Missing a few is reasonable, but not in the double digits. Now back to editing I go. Look, I used to see articles written. I'm like, boy, there's so many citations missing, so many things. I'm like, can we trust what you said? And these things get at, we want people to trust what we're writing about. And so making sure that you properly cite is going to be really important. And so the lesson you want to take away from this is that, adhering to the journal guidelines matter. Take the time to review before you submit your manuscript. You may save yourself months of waiting because what journals may not tell you is that you may still get a desk rejection, but it may take 4 months. But had you just followed the guidelines and then realized like, oh, I need to do the citation format correct. Like this journal does Chicago, doesn't do APA, or this journal does MLA and not Chicago, or this journal does, whatever, format and not this one, Vancouver and not, APA. You got to know what this is and then adhere to the guidelines. But what you do in this situation is that one of the steps when you're writing for publication is that before you go to write, you want to identify the journal you're going to write for, and then you're going to want to go to what's called the aims and scope of the journal. Every journal has it. Now, how good you can find it on a website differs, right? Some of these websites a little, I don't know, a little janky for some of these journals, but there's somewhere written on that website somewhere, or even on a physical copy. Shout out to CPED. I was at the AERA, and they had, I'm just giving a shout. They had their actual physical journal, right? And this is the Carnegie Project for the Education Doctorate. And we over the years have supported at Dissertation some of the work that they do. And a lot of times what they will do is somewhere in the journal, and I'm actually looking at it now to see where they have probably somewhere the aims and scope of the journal. And I know they have it online. And then again, it's in the physical version, it's actually on the back of the journal. And sorry, I know this is a little blurry here. Let's see. And it says they call it the focus and scope. So sometimes the name can be different, but the focus and scope. And so they talk about impacting education, seeks to provide a forum where academics and practitioners alike may publish scholarly articles that meaningfully contribute to the improved preparation of pre-K to 20 education leaders through the examination of the development, redesign, and improvement of professional preparation programs, as well as the outcomes of such programs, including the skills, knowledge, dispositions, and impact of EDD program graduates. And then they say, they do publish research articles, dissertation and practice research articles, essay manuscripts, and book reviews of works that support the preparation of educational leaders. They give the scope. They also say, let's see, they talk about, they have an open access policy, which is fine. They talk about the peer review process and what happens. Like these are things that you are going to want to understand quickly about a particular journal before you submit. But this is like in the physical version of the journal. I just happen to have it because it came from a conference. And so you want to start getting comfortable with this because again, I don't want you all to not look at the guidelines and then wonder why your piece is not getting accepted. Just trust me, this will save you so much frustration. I've seen it happen where folks just get stuff kick back over and over again. And this happened to me at first. And it happened to me the first time it happened. The journal said that I was over the word count. Like I didn't recognize that I need to stay within the word count of the journal. I was naive, when I was trying to write for publication as a doctoral student. So these are some of the tips and strategies I'm going to give you because I want you all to learn this now so that when you're trying to convert your dissertation over, you're going to want to adhere to this. Now, the next insight that I want to provide for you from the editor's desk: make sure your article has a purpose. Just having disjointed bodies of work in your paper without some link will guarantee a reject. I just skimmed through an article before considering to send it out for review, and due to how it was written, there is no way I can send it out. I don't want our work to get rejected like this. And again, I really wanted to help folks who were writing because now I was seeing it as an editor. And I want you all to make sure that your article has a purpose. And the lesson I want you to take away from this is that any publication you write should have one central purpose. Just throwing literature together will guarantee a rejection. Because sometimes what I see is like folks try to cobble like literature together and create something like a conceptual piece, and it makes no sense. But what I want you all to consider is that if you're trying to write for publication, your piece is going to want to have a central purpose, and one in particular. If your article is having two purposes, then you may have two different articles that you need to write for separate journals. You're going to want to have one particular purpose, and this becomes a challenge when you're writing from your dissertation because you have multiple chapters. You have multiple research questions, and so what I tell folks to do oftentimes, if you're trying to transform your dissertation to a journal article, instead of looking at all your research questions, you're going to want to take one research question. You're going to build an article all around the one question. This is how your favorite authors sometimes get like 5, 6, 7 publications from their dissertation. I know me in particular, I've gotten probably about 8 publications from my dissertation because my dissertation looked at Black male adult students in higher education, and particularly at HBCUs. And so one of my findings was that there were differences in experiences between younger Black male students and adult learners. That was one article in terms of how they interact with faculty. I wrote a piece for the Journal of Men's Studies about how these two groups differed on how they interacted with faculty. Another piece was about just experiences about the adult learners. And I took that piece and wrote an adult education quarterly about the subsample of just adult learners in my, that I interviewed. Then I did another study that focused on one particular student who had such a unique case. He was from Liberia and came to the United States and it was a pre-service teacher education, science education major. His case was so unique, and no one had been writing about the experiences of Black immigrants at HBCUs who want to go on into teaching. That was a very interesting, and actually refugee in his case, interesting literature experience. So I wrote a case study about that one particular student. So that's 3 like empirical articles right there. I wrote one that was a very short piece about the field of adult education needing to consider Black male adult learners. Those are 4 pieces, all came from my dissertation because I had to kind of piece and parse them apart. I couldn't write all those things in one paper. It would have got easily rejected because there's been too many different kind of foci for the work. And so again, the lesson I want you to take away from this is that you are going to want to write and have one central purpose. Now, if you're getting value out of this, send this to somebody, because I know this is going to resonate with people who are trying to write and trying not to make these simple mistakes. And then the last mistake in last editor's insight that I want to give you is this for today's episode. From the editor's desk: less is more. I recently reviewed a paper that presented 5 themes and it was all over the place. I find that it's better to build on and go in depth on 2 to 3 themes in your findings section rather than try to cram everything into one paper. And this way your paper has focus and you can write more articles from your data set. This is what I was trying to get at. This is one of the insights that I was always thinking about, is that this idea sometimes you're trying to put too much in the paper. Your dissertation is like 200 pages. Mine from cover to cover is 221. I can't fit all that in a journal article. Usually journal articles, my goal target writing page count is 25 pages. There's no way I can fit it all. And I got to do everything in 25 pages. So my findings had to be strategic and very direct and to the point, and they had to have a purpose and intent. So I'd rather you do 2 to 3 very deeply than 5. And I learned this from, shout out to Dr. Kimberly Griffin Hayes, who's the dean at the College of Education at the University of Maryland, College Park. When I was a doctoral student at the American Association for the Study of Higher Education conference one year, we were doing a roundtable, and she said this at a roundtable, and I was like, you know what? That thing stuck with me all those years. That probably was maybe 12 or 13 years ago. That thing stuck with me. And that was one of the things I adopted in my writing, where I don't try to cram all my findings, but I go in depth maybe on two or three. This is something that you want to consider and want to think through as you're writing for publication. And so the lesson that you want to take away from this is that don't cram everything into one publication. Each piece should have its own unique perspective. As I mentioned in my own work, when I was writing about the differences about how younger Black male students and adult learners interacted with faculty, that became its own piece. That had its own perspective. That needed to be its own piece. I didn't need to combine that with another piece with the call for the field of adult education to focus on adult learners. That would have clashed. There was too many foci. It was too all over the place. You want to piece apart your dissertation. You don't want to try to do everything in one paper. It just won't work. It'll be a challenge for you to write, and you'll get very frustrated with the writing process because you will feel all over the place. And so with that said, I hope this is helpful and insightful for you to get these insights from me being a journal editor and being someone who has written 70 publications at this point, so that you know the insights on how to do this. I want you all to be prolific writers. I want you all to get your pieces published. And these insights I'm sharing with you are lessons that I have learned in being an editor that I think you can benefit from. And with that said, if you're someone who is still trying to get your dissertation done because like, hey, I want to write for publication and do this, I want to invite you to schedule a consultation with us in terms of getting the support you might need in order to get through the dissertation process, so that we can teach you our writing process in order to write for publication as well. And so if that's you, I want you to go to www.velocitydissertation.com or scan the QR code that is here on your screen to learn more about how we can help get you to the finish line. And if you are someone else who is the person that is like, look, I need to figure out how am I going to just write generally because I'm struggling with academic writing right now. Hey, I know that's the case, and that's sometimes happens as well. I want to provide you a training called Elevate Your Academic Writing, where I teach you a strategy on how to improve your academic writing. So if you're in that boat where you are struggling as an academic writer, I want you to get access to this complimentary training. All you have to do is scan the QR code to download it, or you can go to www.thedonedissertation.com/elevate to learn more and get access to the training. I want you all to win. I want to see you all win, and there's no reason why you can't win in this process. So with that said, I want to say thank you all so much for watching this episode. If this has been helpful for you, make sure that you reach out to us. Let us know in the comments. Send us a DM wherever you're watching this, so that we can know more about, what insights that you have. And again, I want to see you all get these dissertations done. Don't sit on this. You all have so much work to provide to the field, and I want to see your work out there and published. So with that said, take these insights and actually apply them. That would be the greatest gift you can give to me, even if you don't work with us at Done Dissertation. Apply the strategies. And if you know a friend who needs support, send them our way. But with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation. And until next time, I wish you all a Done Dissertation. Take care.